S07E17. That's all we need. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, look, I'm not too bad. We continued our unbeaten run through November and into December, and I think it's not too much to complain about, really.
Yeah, 5 games unbeaten now. It's uncharted territory, really, in the championship under McGann. It's ticking along quite nicely. Yeah, that 1-1 draw with Reading on the weekend, not without a little bit of controversy, which we'll, I'm sure, get to in due course. But I guess the really good thing to see was no changes to the side, I don't believe, from the previous game, which is pretty rare or maybe sort of unheard of this season under McCann. Nice to sort of see a settled side go out for this one. We've sort of said over the season, I guess, that it's been sort of a bit of chopping and changing either the formation or the personnel for injuries or suspensions or what have you. So, yeah, good to see a settled side for this one.
Yeah, I think I guess it begs the question: is it the consistency that's developing into results, or is it the results are allowing us to have that semblance of consistency? So, I mean, either way, pretty happy. As I said, like I think we're just about the best record over the last 5 games. I think QPR's one point better than us or something, but um, remarkable considering where we were only a month ago, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think McCann and Honeyman both nominated for the Player and Manager of the Month awards.
Yeah, look, let's hope they don't win because I don't want to get struck by that curse again.
Yeah.
But no, I think they both deserve that. I think Honeyman's been sensational since he's come back in with 3 goals, a couple of assists, and just busy as he always is. And obviously, for whatever reason, we've finally been allowed to change away from the 4-3-3, and it seems to be working. So all power to McCann at the moment. He's got the boys ticking along nicely, and we're getting some results. If we can get a little bit more ruthless in front of goal, I think that's really the only thing that's missing at the moment.
Yeah. It's also pretty remarkable thinking about it that we're not really starting with any recognised or natural fullbacks, even as playing as wingbacks. We're playing Longman and KLP in those positions. And I mean, this Reading game, just to touch on the game itself, I mean, from the start of the game, I just thought we were completely dominant. I thought we had the better chances throughout the first half, really. And it was one of the first games in this run, really, where I've just thought this is like, if we can start to play at this level consistently, like we will have no issues staying in this division. And maybe famous last words saying that. But, you just look at the level of performance and I'm like, we could have been watching us last season in League One, just dominating sides, passing the ball around for fun, getting up the pitch really aggressively and creating quite a lot of chances.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we really were dominant, particularly the first half. I think the second half, Reading really came at us and they had us under a fair bit of pressure. It was a bit dicey there in a few moments, both, on an individual level, and I'm sure we'll talk about those moments as well, and just in general. But I think it was sort of one of those games where if that early goal, Wilks's effort that was then ruled out for offside, if that had gone in, I think it changes the complexion. And the way that Reading scored right on the stroke of half time is one of those, the coach killer almost, that you hate to concede those goals right then. They, Reading went into half time, all revved up, came out firing again in the second half and made it really difficult. But I think overall, I know they had a lot of pressure, but I still think that we created more clear-cut options. Like we put the ball in the back of the net 3 times, albeit twice ended up being ruled out for offside. But apart from that, there's one really good save from Baxter to the one-on-one to stop Swift, I think it was.
Swift, yeah, it was Swift. And then I think, was it Carroll had a shot maybe a little bit after that was the other one is really the only other one I can think of. And that was, you're expecting your keeper to save those, you would say.
Yeah, so I don't like, they had us under a lot of pressure throughout the second half, but they didn't seem to create too many clear-cut opportunities. That very well could have been different.
Yeah.
with the way that Deshaun Bernard went about his game on the weekend. Couple of
Yeah,
moments, debatable moments that could look. I think it was one of those. For me, they were the sort of calls that if they'd gone the other way, it would have been hard to complain.
yeah.
But
I think especially the handball. I think that one
oh,
was the most clear cut. I think the tackle on Swift, I can sort of say, it's a bit of a 50-50. You could, like you said, if it had gone the other way, you can't really complain about it. The handball, I think, was very much. I mean, it's funny. We were sort of sitting here the other week after the Birmingham game saying, oh, well, we're due a slice of luck with the way the season's gone so far. And it's kind of funny. It's come around again in another game. I was listening to a podcast during the week that was sort of saying, geez, Hull's been pretty lucky this season with the calls they've got. And I thought, well, maybe in recent weeks, because it's sort of been highlighted so much with the Longman goal against, well, it's assist against Birmingham and then these two. But there was a lot of penalty shouts early in the season, especially on Wilks, that I can think of that we just didn't get. So we've certainly rode our luck in this game again. As you say, yeah. I mean, Dishon just sort of at the center of both of them. I enjoyed his response to the Reading tweets after the game, asking if anyone wanted to see more angles. He said, no, I don't think anyone asked, which is quite good, I thought. Nice response from him. And he's sort of joining the banter club with Baxter as well.
So, yeah, it's good to see them have a bit of personality let loose occasionally on Twitter or social media, or even in the post-match interviews. A bit of character is always good to see.
Yeah, no, certainly. And look, we sort of touched on before, but I think another terrific game from Baxter. That save, especially on Swift. I think I saw some stat that he's saved something like 92 or 95% of the shots that he's faced, or something ridiculous like that, which doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, he's let in the goal against Millwall and the goal here, which was a pretty ridiculous finish. So you're not going to really fault him for that one. But I think I sort of touched on last week with Logan, the comments from him about being open to a permanent move here in the future. And we'll probably talk a little bit later on about potential moves in the transfer market. But at the age of 23, he's got a lot of football ahead of him. And he's certainly one that if we could get on a permanent deal somehow, it'd be terrific.
Yeah, I think his comment was something about like, if he couldn't, he still wants to try and crack it at Chelsea, but if he couldn't, he'd have no problems coming back to our club. Someone like, can we just get on to Chelsea management, tell them that to let him know they don't interest that he can go, and we'll just
I appreciate his ambition, but I think considering the age of Mendy at Chelsea, I think he's only 22 or 23, and Kepa's not too old either. It's not as if they've got Czech or someone in goal who's nearing the end of his career. I mean, look, we didn't think he was going to break in ahead of Ingram here, and he did that. So he's certainly not faulted for his ambition. So I guess we'll see what happens. But, I'd hope that the door's always open for him to come back here for next season and beyond. Okay, well, let's do our MVP votes for the match then. Oh, well, actually, no, before we do that, we should talk about the Wilks goal as well. Obviously, should probably talk about the goal itself as well. We sort of touched on it before. I mean, Wilks was a bit unlucky, as you said, with the offside goal in the first half off Magennis, and then had a really decent chance at the end of the half as well. Bit of fortune in the goal that he did score, but you can't win the raffle if you don't buy a ticket. So he's sort of taken that shot from pretty far out, and it's managed to go in with a bit of mishandling from the keeper.
Yeah, look, I am not going to lie. When he hit the ball, and it was early Sunday morning, and I watched it, I went, the hell is he doing?
Why is he taking that shot?
I was like, and it came off his boot, so like it didn't look like it came off his boot that well. Like it was low and it was sort of just skimming and scudding, and I was like, whatever, another like dodgy wasted half chance. And then I have no idea what happened with the Reading keeper.
He probably wasn't expecting it any more than you were.
I think when I watched the replays, he was going to his left and then had to change to his right. So I think he was maybe wrong-footed a bit, and then he must have just fallen. I think just a bit awkward, and there's been maybe a bit of a bobble and everything. And then it's bounced off his arm and into the top of the net, and I sort of laughed. I had to laugh a little bit at how it happened, how it managed to go in. I think it's almost as good as what was it, Eves scoring with his backside.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was a comical sort of a goal. But look, as you said, goal's a goal. We'll take it. And look, I thought, as much as we've been critical of Wilks in recent weeks, it was a better showing. Still not
Yep.
what the level I would expect, but better. He was, actually involved in a couple of decent chances, got a goal. Was involved a little bit more. So, maybe he's on the improve. This will only help a bit of extra confidence. So, um,
Yeah, and then look, as I sort of started by saying, I mean, the comparison to our League One season, it felt like that sort of result where you kind of struggling through the match for most of it, and then Wilkes or sometimes it was KLP as well last season would just pop up and get a goal right at the end and either win it for us or get us a point, and that's sort of the confidence or the reassurance in our form lately is the fact that we can sort of keep fighting and manage to get a goal, get a point when earlier in the season thinking games like the Derby game, for instance, where we could just play for 200 minutes and we weren't going to get a goal out of that game.
yeah, I think I guess that's for whatever reason. Again, whether that's the consistency in personnel that's allowed us to get
Yeah,
start developing the results, or the other way around. But I think we're starting to, really reap the rewards of the change in system, and those that starting 11 are really all staking, apart from maybe Wilkes, but he's getting there, staking they've staked the claim. It's their jersey to lose essentially at the moment. So um, it's been really impressed with quite a few, especially I think Longman's been really good the last month or so after being a little bit dubious of his first couple of appearances. I was sort of like, is this all he has to offer? But he's really coming along nicely. KOP again, or is still in form, dangerous. Honeyman, I think, has just been the missing link for us. He's what was
yeah,
missing at the beginning of the season, and it it's wild to me because you never really, you don't never build a team around a player, like, because you see what happens when they're missing. And but how crucial he really is to our side.
yeah.
And it's not like the players that we have to fill in that position when he's not available aren't up to scratch, or that we can't still field a strong side without him.
Oh,
But
I
he
mean,
just
you think of like George Monker and Andy Cannon, who
mm,
aren't even really getting a look in the side at the moment.
yeah, but he seems to have this talismanic quality um, for us when he's playing, and he's just a different. I don't know. He just sees the game maybe a little bit differently to the others. He seems to be able to get in those pockets, and he's making those little runs into the box and around that area, and just seems to be the way he plays and sees the game just seems to really really suit McCann's the philosophy and the style that he wants to play, and when he's in the team, we're markedly better
Absolutely.
for it. So.
Okay, well, we'll jump on now to the MVP votes for this game. I'll maybe get you to kick these ones off for us.
Um, yeah, so went with I gave 3 points to Baxter, because I think another really good display. A couple of those saves that we mentioned earlier, the one-on-one with Swift, were game changers. They kept us in the game. They kept the game alive. Um, Admittedly, maybe for the most part, didn't have too much to do, but when was called upon, did what he had to. And as we sort of touched on, there's not a lot you can do about a bicycle kick on the 6 yard box. There's not a lot of reaction time
Yeah,
in a situation like that. And again, and I think even on top of that, that's a situation that should have been dealt with by the defense before it even got to that stage. So I don't really think there's any blame on him for that opening goal. I gave 2 points to George Honeyman for another really strong display in that midfield, the top of the midfield. The involved in the one that Tyler Smith's offside, not a beautiful little run through the defensive line to get him behind, but just whether the run was mistimed or the ball was mistimed, but um, that was really nice, and his general play again, although it was outstanding. My 1 point Um, I when I watched the game, I went, wow, Greaves great again, Bernard great again. But then Greaves gives away the free kick and the yellow at the end of the game. Bernard with those two lucky calls, and I was like, I think he's been lucky enough. I'm actually going to give my 1 point to our other forgotten man who has been actually superbly consistent over the last month or so. While Greaves and Bernard have been getting the plaudits, I think Sean McLaughlin has just gone about his business. He's been really tidy and really consistent, and I'm going to give him the point. Maybe not so much, especially for this game, but I think just as a reward for he's essentially for seizing his chance.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great chat, and he's definitely the forgotten man in the side. I'm sort of sitting there saying, who was our third centre back again? It's McLaughlin, of course it is. And because, as you say, he just sort of goes about his business. He doesn't sort of grab the headlines like Bernard does sometimes, or Greaves because he's the homegrown product. But McLaughlin's really sort of taking this opportunity with both hands, and it's going to be an interesting dilemma when Jones is back fit, because Jones was sort of seen as one of our best products coming out of League One, and he's going to presumably struggle to get back into this side with the form that they're showing. Yeah, no, I think McLaughlin had another fantastic game, and I can't argue with you either for your three or your two. I think, as we've sort of said, it just feels like every time we're going forward, Honeyman's just kind of screaming for the ball because he wants the ball, because he's going to just make those moves. He's going to get the ball into the box either with a cross, which I think for that Wilks chance near the end of the half, he kind of threw the ball into the box for Wilks to get a chance at it. And as you say, like that, just a slightly mistimed run for that potential chance for Tyler Smith near the end as well. But he's just sort of at the heart of everything that we do, and sort of makes us tick. So, as you say, you don't want to build your side around a particular player in case they're missing or leave the club. But as it stands, I think he's definitely our most valuable player in that sense. I gave the one vote to Wilks. I mean, I think with the amount of criticism that he's sort of copped in recent weeks about his work rate and his, I guess maybe his general interest in games, he sort of kind of drifts in and out of them at times. I thought he put in a really good shift in this game. I think that first chance that was slightly offside, and then the chance near the end of the half, and then the goal he scored showed that he was really trying to get into the game, to make an effort, make an impact, and thought it was definitely one of his better games for the season. So he got the 1 point from me. Okay, well, there's not a whole lot of off-field discussion to be had this week. We sort of talked about McCann's sort of status at the club last week or the week before. We are sort of, now that we're kind of entering December, we're kind of looking at January being on the horizon. I thought it was an interesting time to sort of reassess and take stock of where we're at as a squad, and whether you think, or what you think you see as a need for us to stock up on in January for the squad. I think, a couple of months ago, it might have been a relatively different discussion considering our position in the league and what we might have been struggling with. But I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts that might have changed since then.
Look, I think the priority anyway, leading into January and throughout January, should actually be to sort out the contract situation where we have, I think, 9 maybe players or something that are coming out of, it's some ridiculous number. It might be 9, including our loan players or something. But
Is this just a clip that you're playing from a podcast that we might have done a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago? This does feel like it's just a constant. It feels like a constant issue,
Groundhog
doesn't it?
Day,
Yeah.
yeah. This we have a significant number of players that
Mm.
are coming off contract that, if they're approached in January, can sign those pre-contract agreements and be gone essentially. Elders one, I think. Magennis is in his option year. Some of
This
these
is where
players,
it gets so
it's
tricky
all
because
sorts
there's
of weird
players.
stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we do, like, there are still like 1 year like we've got, I think, options that we could take on some of these players. But I honestly think that for quite a few of them, it's sit down, have the discussion, re-sign them on another 2 or 3 year deal. Would be the best thing. I honestly think, in terms of actually signing anyone, I'd probably be maybe looking at seeing if we could maybe loan out a couple, maybe Eves for 6 months. If anyone, wants him, I don't, he's sort of there or thereabouts, but I think particularly if new owners came in, I'd be say ship him out for 6 months. Let's bring someone else in on loan, um, who has a little bit better pedigree, uh, better goal scoring record in this division. Um, Someone to really, I guess, challenge Magennis and whether it's Wilks or whatever for in those front two positions. That's, I mean, apart from that,
Maybe for me, maybe an experienced centre back just as backup. If you
yeah,
sort of think about it, at the moment, we've got all three of our fit centre backs
mm,
playing. If there was another injury or a suspension, like we saw with Bernard against Cardiff, it leaves us a bit short at centre back. So for me, maybe it's a centre back. But I think broadly, I mean, you're right. I think it's more about re-signing players, and I'm sort of hoping that once the new owners are in the doors, they can run their rule over the squad. What the players that they
mm,
value, the players that they see having a long-term future at the club. Your KLP, your Greaves, your who else really? I mean, I guess Elder, as you said, Honeyman as well,
mm,
absolutely. Doherty, um, players like that, I'd be giving extended deals to just to tie them down for another 3-4 years.
yeah,
Um, if for nothing else, it gives you a bit of security in the next year or two, as you say, if a Premier League club or someone, as we've already started to see rumours about Greaves being linked to Norwich and other clubs in the Premier League, you want that security that if they were to go, it would take a pretty hefty offer to make it happen.
yeah. I think that's the other thing is making sure that we keep those players because
Yeah,
you know that the rumors are there. There's already been offers before that there'll be something. Some offer will appear for KLP or for Greaves. I dare say throughout January, and we need to make sure that that our heads aren't turned, whether that's new owners or our current owners who potentially see the possibility of you know recouping a little bit more or something dumb. I'm sure there's some stipulations in there. These sale contracts and the agreements that are going through that they can't you know, they probably need to ratify any deals with the new owners or something potentially before. But I mean, who knows? Who knows what happens with with these sorts of deals and this amount of money? But you would that would be I think the priorities is just to lock up what we already have. I guess you look at the form over the last month or so, and you say like if we can maintain this for the rest of the season, I've no doubt we'll be safe. And if you can lock those guys up, then next season we're very, if we can start off from the beginning and not be essentially 14 games behind everyone else, like then you put yourself in
yeah.
a very good position to actually be pushing, for those playoff places. I mean, even mathematically, they're still not unattainable at the moment if we were to continue this run, but um, for me, it's still a little bit of a that's a bit of a bit far away, a little bit far fetched still at the moment.
I saw. I think it was Phil Brown came out in the media last week and said this was very similar to their season in 2007, 2008, where they ended up scraping into the playoffs and sort of giving away an answer there for the next part of the show. But I think he even acknowledged that they weren't quite so far adrift
Mm,
as we are at this stage. But as you say, I mean, before the weekend, we had Reading saying to us saying to the media that they were still aiming for the playoffs. And you think, well, they're behind us on points. So if they're aiming for the playoffs, then
mm,
why can't we? Um, I really like your shout as well, actually, of if we loaned out someone like Tom Eaves and got someone in on loan rather than splashing out on a permanent signing. And I think it was Dwight Gale being linked to West Brom and a few other clubs as a striker. And who knows, with a bit of money behind us, maybe we'd sort of try and turn a few heads and get him in on loan for 6 months. And as a proven championship goal scorer, that suddenly transforms your
mm.
prospects quite significantly.
Yeah, I think that's probably as I think I mentioned earlier. That's the only thing I think that's really missing from from the games and our form at the moment is the ability to really just put bang a few goals away and put teams to the sword. Where we might be winning and the performance makes it comfortable, but the scoreline has never felt comfortable even over the last month or so. The scoreline's never felt comfortable for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on then for our triple flashback feature of the week. And I've sort of this is a reasonably easy one as far as these go, but I've sort of picked it based on the opponent that we have coming up this weekend. So I want you to name for me our last three managers to have gotten us promotion.
Um, Grant McCann, because obviously we got promoted last year or last season. Can I go Steve Bruce and Steve Bruce? Does that count?
Sure. We'll go. We'll go three different people. Yeah.
Oh, look, I'm not. You have given away the answer, and only because I know I looked it up after I'd made my guess, and I made my guess without even then looking further down the sheet. But my guess was actually Pearson. My third guess. But I then was like, because pretty much, as you know, the Bruce era is a pretty much is when I came into the fold and started following. So as soon as it was before Bruce, I was like, I actually have no idea. And then I just like picked it. Was trying to think of which managers I can remember from around those the previous promotion times. So
So
I took a random stab at the dark in with Pearson.
So Pearson's a good guess. I mean, Pearson was just after that Premier League relegation, but it was actually just before that with Phil Brown
Hmm.
getting us up the first time with that playoff final against Bristol City. So, um, yeah. So I thought I was sort of giving that away when I was talking about
You,
Brown
well,
with
you
the.
you did. I could have very well have just claimed it and
Yeah,
taken the three
but
from three and gone, oh
yeah,
look how good I am. But I thought I'd play fair. These were the guesses
no,
that I'd already made.
fair shout. No, no, that's good. Good integrity. Good integrity. We're showing good integrity ahead of that Christmas quiz that we're going to do with to Harlem back. It's we're showing that we're going to fight fair, which is good to see. Yeah, no. So it was Phil Brown with the promotion final in 2008 against Bristol City, who are our next opponents this week. So. We do have that. We do have that other connection with Bristol City, of course, being Nigel Pearson in charge at Bristol City, former Hull City manager. He was appointed February of last year, and he's, I suppose, doing an okay job there. I'm not quite sure on what their ambitions are. They sort of kind of go through waves of sort of pushing up and challenging for the playoffs, and then at other times just sort of staying in the division. I guess they're, with Derby's imminent departure from the league, they're sort of becoming the new long-term championship club who just are there. They don't. They're just sort of present in the league. Not one of the big dogs, not one of the struggling minnows as well. But they have had a bit of a tougher time of it this season. I think they got the win against Peterborough or someone who was their first home win in something like 12 months, which was pretty wild. Um, so sort of struggling along just below us in the table, I believe. They've won two of their last five games, most recently against Derby, and we haven't beaten them since April of 2016, all the way back when we had Curtis Davies, Rob Snodgrass, Mo Diami, and Shoni Aluko on the score sheet. So a bit of a blast from the past with those names. A bit of a tricky fixture, I suppose, against Pearson. They're sort of showing a little bit of form recently, but you'd like to think it's a good opportunity for us to get another win and really sort of jump up into that mid table sort of group of clubs.
Yeah, look, I think even though we, say settled for a draw against Reading, I think it was one of those games where even still managing to scrape a point, and we had our chances to win it. So did they, but I think that's still a game that was going to breed a lot of confidence within us, and maintaining that unbeaten record is always nice. So 5 games unbeaten. I sort of am with you. I expect to make it 6. Um, I see no reason why we shouldn't win. I think I think the players have been performing well, and I'm just looking forward to picking up another 3 points and climbing a little bit further away from relegation, a little bit closer to safety.
For some reason, I had it in my head that they're below us. I've just had a look; they're actually 4 points ahead of us. So I think their recent wins have probably helped keep them a little bit ahead of us. But yeah, if we can get the win here, it brings us to within a point of them, and then we're sort of back in that pack of Preston, Birmingham, Blackpool, Swansea, Forest, all those sorts of clubs, and yeah, climbing away from that relegation zone is the main thing. I think there's a few clubs that are starting to get a bit bogged down in those bottom few places, so it's a good opportunity for that. I mean, they've got a few former Premier League players that Pearson will be used to. I think Vyman's there, who was with Leicester back in their Premier League days. The one I sort of called out was they've got a young winger, I believe he is, Alex Scott, playing his first season for Bristol City. He scored against Derby. He's only 18 years old. I think that's his second goal. I think he scored against Forest as well, where they sort of went on to lose with 2 goals in the 91st and 93rd minutes or something like that. But always good to see those sorts of young, exciting players starting to come through. So we'll keep an eye out to see how he does in the game. But I guess the other question is just any changes to the lineup. We sort of talked about the enjoyment out of getting a pretty settled lineup now. I can't really think of a weakness or I mean, maybe Elder back in on at the left wing back for Longman. But I don't really think Longman deserves to lose his place. So probably unchanged.
Yeah, look, I can't see any reason to change. My actually only thought for a change might be to bring Tyler Smith in for a
Yeah.
start for one of the two, which would probably end up Magennis.
Yeah.
With McCann's penchant for Wilks, how much he seems to love him. But
Yeah, and I guess if you scored the goal last week, it's pretty harsh to drop
it,
you. But
it would be. But that I don't actually think it'll happen. I think Smith will, if he's he'll come off the bench again late on. Because he's just returning from from his minor injury, whatever that was, I forget. So I reckon a few games off the bench again, and then maybe if Magennis hasn't scored in another few games, then throw Tyler Smith in to start. But I think the system's kind of working at the moment with KLP and Longman both starting as wing backs, playing for 60 minutes and then going, okay, let's try and consolidate a little bit, and bringing Elder on into that left side seems to be working pretty well over the last few games. So, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
yeah, agreed. Score prediction for this one, or how you think this one will go? I'm probably leaning maybe to a 2-1 win. I think we'll probably edge this one. I can't see it being a belting, but I'm pretty reasonably confident of a victory.
Yeah, look, I'm thinking maybe like just a 1-0 or something. I'm sort of the same. I think we'll win. But again, it's going to be one of those where I'm not going to feel comfortable with the scoreline.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I think the performance will be really strong, and the performance will warrant probably a 3 or 4-0 sort of game like result. But I think we're in, despite all of the attacking endeavour we're showing, we're still lacking a little bit on that the final touch, the final polish. But I think it'll come over time, hopefully. And if not, we'll just keep winning 1-0.
absolutely. And then just quickly before we go, I did just realize we have also had the FA Cup third round draw. We've been drawn against Everton, so Premier League opposition. I'm pretty happy with that. They're not an unbeatable Premier League club. It's nice to be playing one of the big boys again. Hopefully, we'll get a good crowd at the MKM as a result of that draw, and pretty exciting tie to look forward to.
Yeah, look, I think that's absolutely right. Good to be playing against without having to struggle through all the opening rounds of qualifying and everything, just to come in and sure. I mean, I think you're right. It'll be a good game. It'll be a good spectacle. Reminiscent of what was last season, Chelsea in the quarter-finals of, or whatever it
Chelsea.
was, of
That was the
whatever.
season before, I think. When we got the pretty much the sold out MKM. It was Bowen and
Yeah,
Grzycki's last game. That's
that
right.
that's right. Yeah, so reminiscent, sort of. Hopefully, that's the sort of thing we can achieve. A packed house, big game. Again, I mean, obviously the result would be preferable if it was different, but no, I think it's good. I think I mean, playing the way we are, it's probably even touching on achievable.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Everton. I mean, they got the win against Arsenal during the week, but other than that, they've been struggling along for a bit of form at the moment. So certainly an achievable game there. Well, thanks for joining me for this episode, Dan.
Not a problem.
It's a bit of a light run at the moment. We've only got one game a week up until just after Christmas, I think, or just before New Year's Eve. So it's only the one game each week at the moment for City, but we'll be back next week to discuss that Bristol City result and look ahead to the following games. But until then,